very good morning to you, Nigeria. Welcome to another edition of What's Your Take? My name is Dayo Akintobi, and I'll be taking you through the major stories that made the headlines last week. And as always, joining me to run the show this morning is my trusty sidekick and newscaster, Yetunde Afolabi. Yetunde, how are you this morning, and how was your weekend?
Good morning, Dayo. I'm very well, thank you. And my weekend was very fine.
Wonderful. Well, guess what? We have cash. We have cash. Nigeria has cash at last. Cash, cash. Yes, over the weekend, the banks opened Saturday and Sunday, and they were dispensing money at the counter and dispensing money from the ATM. The queues are disappearing slowly, and relief is here at long last. Yetunde, how do you feel about that?
It's a relief, but these 2 months, is it 2 months?
Yes, 2 months.
Felt like 5 years.
Yes, indeed.
I never knew we would come back to
normalcy.
normal.
To normalcy. All right. Well, I'm sure as excited as you are, all of Nigeria is excited as well, that perhaps we can get our lives back on track and things start moving again in terms of having money in our pockets. All right. Let's look at one or two quick issues before we dive into the headlines. First of all, there's sad news coming out of the UK, which saw that last week the former Senate President Ike Ekweremadu got convicted in a UK court of inducing someone to donate a kidney to his ailing daughter. He's been convicted along with his wife and one other person, and they'll be sentenced May 5th. And that's a very sad story because you look at it from two different sides. Number one, as a parent who is willing and able to do anything to help their child who is having a medical challenge. From the standpoint of a parent, you can understand why he did what he did, and you pray to never be found in that kind of situation. On the other hand, there's other people who saying the law is the law. He should have known better. He shouldn't have taken a risk of breaking the laws of another country, and now he's got to pay the price. Either way you look at it, not a very good outing for Ike Ekweremadu, and our good wishes and prayers are with him and his family, and especially the daughter whose medical situation is still ongoing. All right, next we are looking at Peter Obi was in Anambra this past weekend in the 1-year celebration of Peter Soludo's ascension, not Peter, Charles Soludo, his ascension to office of governorship. He celebrated 1 year a few days ago. And what struck everyone there was when Peter Obi entered that hall, the standing ovation, the acclaim, the applause. It goes to show that Peter Obi is really actually quite popular in Anambra, and perhaps justification for the 97% that he was able to score in the presidential election in Anambra, which many people questioned and said LP must have rigged. But when you saw the outpouring of love for him at that event, it makes you begin to understand that maybe it's possible that 97% of the people in Anambra actually did vote for him. Well, Femi Fani-Kayode is in the news. He had a spat with the British envoy a couple of days ago, and he threw plenty big grammar, invectives rolled all over the place at the British, because the envoy dared to suggest that anyone who makes inciting comments in Nigeria and anyone who is sponsoring hate and all that is being watched carefully by the UK government and will be put on a visa ban. Well, that incensed Femi Fani-Kayode, and he had a major riff for the British envoy, and ended up saying they have no right interfering in Nigerian politics and that the days of colonialism are over. Well, yeah, he said a lot of things, and most of it was truth, but in diplomatic terms, he should have probably been less caustic with his comments. I also suspect he probably has a British passport himself, which is why it was so easy for him to cast aspersions on the British, because even if they put a visa ban on him, it probably doesn't stop him from being able to go to the UK. There was also a report from one global organization a few days ago showing that the Nigerian passport is the least powerful in West Africa. That is based on the kind of countries, the number of countries we can visit without a visa, or the number of countries that will allow us visa on arrival. And out of the 14 countries measured, we were last. So it means that if you're carrying that green passport, you have to get a visa to go to most countries, which is a shame. Gambia, Ghana, all of those other countries don't require visas to as many countries as we do in Nigeria. So let's spruce up our image, spruce up our reputation, and let's hope that the new incoming government at May 29 will do things to improve our global relations with other countries to where this issue of our passport will begin to get better recognition. All right, joining me to take a look at the big stories that made the headlines last week is Lekan Lawal. Olalekan Lawal. Lekan is an entrepreneur from Lagos who has interests in a community newspaper. He also owns a printing press and he does graphics design. Welcome to What's Your Take, Lekan. Thank you for taking the time out to join us today.
Thank you very much for having me around. Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, very good. How has the cash scarcity dealt with your business in terms of printing, graphics design? Were you able to succeed doing electronic transfers a lot, or were you hampered in your business by virtue of the fact that your customers didn't have cash?
It has really affected a whole lot, but we had to take the options of alternative for cash transfers and all, but there were still challenges in that sector as well, but it's been relieved now, and we hope that in the coming days that everything will be suppressed completely.
Very good. All right, Yetunde, let's go over to you and tell us what the newspapers are saying about the CBN directive on naira. That all of a sudden now we are starting to see some movement with the naira.
Naira scarcity, pardon me. Banks ration old notes, long queues persist. Cash shortage eases as queues disappear gradually at Lagos and Abuja ATMs. Banks restrict over-the-counter withdrawals to 10,000 naira and in some cases 20,000 naira. Central Bank of Nigeria Governor Godwin Emefiele apologizes to Nigerians over inadequacies of e-banking channels. Over to you, Dayo.
All right, thank you, Yetunde. So as I said at the beginning of the show, we're starting to see some movement with this whole new naira, old naira cash disbursement. And the banks worked over the weekend to make sure that they were able to attend to many customers. Lekon, you've already said that in your business, luckily, you were able to use electronic transactions, electronic channels to do your transactions. And in your line of work, that worked. But by and large, generally, in Nigeria as a whole, what in your experience has been the average Nigerian's pain? How are we receiving the news now that this long nightmare is finally over? What is the temperature of the people around you in terms of the news that cash will now be available in greater and greater supply with each passing day?
There's a sigh of relief, really, because yes, the queues are getting shorter. People are now getting cash. I'm aware that a particular bank over the weekend was doing between 150 and 200,000 naira over the counter.
Per person?
Yes.
Really?
And about 30,000 naira on ATMs. So the gospel of normalcy has returned to Nigeria. And in the next few days, I'm sure that it will get better.
Very good. We heard that CBN actually released 5 billion naira to each bank to share between all their branches, and that is a substantial amount of money and should go quite a long way. But still a far stretch from the amount of naira that was withdrawn from circulation. I believe we had close to 3 trillion in circulation before, and by the time they mopped it up, we were under 1 billion. And of course, the new notes, nobody really knows how much was released in new notes or how much was printed in new notes. But the gap between what was in circulation before and what was mopped up and what remains in circulation, the gap was so wide that it was almost impossible to meet the gap. So now we have till December 31, which is a good 9 months away before the old currency ceases to be legal tender. My thinking is that will be an opportunity for the central bank to print more of the new notes and slowly begin to withdraw the old notes out of circulation. So by the time December 31 comes, we have enough of the new notes in circulation and all the old notes will be gone. Do you think, in light of the poor handling of the release of the new notes, do you foresee that come December 31, they will do it any better?
Well, I don't think so. As Nigerians, we are used to last minute running around. We take last minute approach at everything, and I am a typical example. I do same. So even if the deadline is being extended to December 31st, 2024, same thing will still happen. Just that it will not be as drastic as this was.
So what do you think we can do to mitigate the fallout come December 31? Should we hoard? Is it that as we are getting the new notes, we should be hoarding it so we have it to keep, so we have it to use when December 31 comes? What are some steps we can take if, as you say, we cannot have confidence that the CBN will implement it well December 31?
What I think is that the current panic will make people hoard, evidently. I, for example, got 50,000 naira cash yesterday and I have since been hoarding it. Yes, I'm looking for more to throw around, but for currently, I have about 50,000 naira in the house untouched already.
Okay, so that's probably what many Nigerians will do after this experience that has really shaken us and shaken our buying power, is that the more naira we get, the more we'll hoard so that we don't get caught with our pants down the road. The NLC seems to have something to say about this naira scarcity. Yesterday, what do you have for us on that? The National Labour Congress, they have taken a position on the scarcity. Why does that word give us such a problem? I always end up saying scarce or scarcity, and it is scarcity. Scarcity, but it always hooks in my mouth, and my tongue always gets twisted around that word for some reason. Yeah, do you have a problem with scarcity?
I have a huge problem.
You too?
I do.
Okay, let's hear from the NLC. What's the NLC got to say here today?
NLC reconsiders strike as CBN opens vaults to banks. The National President of Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, Joe Ajaero, has said that the union may call off its planned strike if Nigerians have adequate access to their monies by Wednesday. The National Executive Council of the Union will meet on Tuesday to review the state of availability of naira notes before taking a final decision on the strike. Meanwhile, the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, NECA, has said a national strike at this time will drag the economy into a deeper hole. All yours, Dio.
Well, NLC wants to strike. You know, NLC strikes are always never easy because they shut down the whole country. So NLC has been threatening to strike. Matter of fact, I have a theory that the NLC's threat and President Buhari's position is what has ended up handcuffing the CBN and forcing it to release this money, because they recognize the fact that an NLC strike to shut everything down after we've gone through 2 months of economic degradation and downturn, to now compound that with a national strike will totally render our economy comatose. So what do you think about the NLC? First of all, is the NLC a toothless bulldog? Do they just always bite recently? I remember in the days of Oshiomhole, they were on strike every other week. But after he left, it seems like every other leader has either been ineffective or has been self-interested and just huff and puff, oh, we're going to do this. Then they get settled in the back and then nothing happens. So do you think the NLC is serious about carrying out this threat? Or do you think that by Wednesday they will just slink off into a corner and they've been settled and all will be good?
For me, I think that the NLC finally found their voice, because over a long time they have been silent of issues of national concern, and this one now is a very huge comeback for the NLC. Threat or no threat, whatever the NLC says, the Apex Bank isn't sure what they are going to do or what their actions is going to be like, and they have to quickly open up the vaults.
They can't take a risk.
Yeah, of course they cannot. Recall that about 2-3 weeks ago, the Supreme Court judgment was for the NLC for the Apex Bank, to comply with making cash available and the extension to the end of the year. But we didn't see changes until NLC came up with this threat, and it's a good one for Nigeria. For now, it's looking like the NLC is on the side of the masses.
Good, yeah, because they're under a new administration. Joe Ajaero just became the president of the NLC, national president, and he is known as an activist. He's always been a unionist from way back, and people say that he has injected a new vigor into the NLC, and we can see them begin to fight on behalf of the masses again, unlike in the immediate recent past. All right, let's move on. Yetunde, what do you have next for us?
Fresh crisis hits PDP. IU suspended, under pressure to quit as PDP chair. The PDP national chairman was issued a suspension letter by 12 executive members of his ward in Benue State. IU is charged with anti-party activities, failure to vote during the last governorship and House of Assembly elections, and is alleged to have looked the other way as his allies in the state worked for the opposition at the polls. What's our guest's take on this, Dio?
Interesting, Lekon. I've always found it weird. Look at a whole national chairman of a party is being suspended by ward executive. Ward. I mean, we're talking from ward, there's local government, there's state, before you get to national. He's the national chairman, the head honcho of the party, and the lowest of the low ward executive can suspend him, and it is binding by the state's, by the party's constitution. So, of course, this whole thing that happened is a fallout of the G5, because he happens to come from the same state as Autumn, right? And of course, Autumn didn't support the PDP. In fact, Autumn came out and endorsed Labour, right? Yeah. So now Autumn lost his bid to go to the Senate. Yeah. So of course, IU didn't come out to vote to support Autumn because Autumn didn't support Atiku. Isn't this all just a mishmash for the PDP? Can the PDP ever recover? Is it done as the opposition party? Is Labour going to supplant it as the bona fide opposition in Nigeria? Because the internal crisis rocking the PDP, can the party survive?
Well, unfortunately for IU, he has not been able to manage the affairs of the party well, because there's an adage that says prostrating for the dwarf does not bring you to his level. So instead, IU should have known better and aligned with the G5 one way or the other. Yes, they don't want you to be chairman of the party, but now that you're chairman, you should have just extend your hands of fellowship and look for a way to bring them on board.
Yes.
The effect of IU's actions now is testament to their loss at the presidential elections, and is a loss of setback for the PDP, considering the fact that even their presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, contested for the 4th time in his career. So it's a major loss for the PDP, and I doubt they can come back from this.
Interesting. It is rather unfortunate that the PDP wasn't able to get its house in order. But as much as I think IU is to blame, I think Atiku too had a lot of blame, because I think Atiku could have navigated detent among the warring factions within that party as the presidential flag bearer and the one having the most to lose. And you can see that it was internal crisis of the PDP that ended up causing them the loss. The G5 were against them, APC were against them, Labour were against them, NNPP. And if you look at those three, Labour, NNPP and the G5, if all of them had come together, in all likelihood, the PDP may have prevailed in this election. So it's really sad that they weren't able to get their house in order. And who knows, the Labour may supplant them as the main opposition party in Nigeria, in which case the PDP only has itself to blame. Okay, Yetunde, let's go to the next one.
Osun State governorship verdict. Appeal court reinstates Adeleke as governor. Oyetola heads to Supreme Court. The Court of Appeal, sitting in Abuja, in an unanimous decision, overturned the earlier ruling of the election tribunal that nullified the outcome of the July governorship polls. The 3-man panel of the appeal courts declared Adeleke as the winner of the election and revoked the tribunal's order, which directed that a certificate of return be withdrawn from Adeleke and issued to his predecessor and the APC candidate, Oyetola. Over to you, Dio.
Lekon, how do you see the outcome of this Osun contest, which is not over and keeps changing day to day? Some people say, well, it's a 1-1 draw now, because obviously the tribunal gave it to Oyetola, Appellate Court has now given it back to Adeleke. So now everything is riding on the Supreme Court. So it's 1-1 draw now, and then of course the Supreme Court is going to be the final arbiter. But how do you see the whole thing that led to the elections being contested? When you look at the results of the presidential election, because you know governorship did not hold in Osun, but the presidential, the National Assembly and the State House of Assembly, what can you read from the outcome of those elections in Osun State vis-a-vis this contest for the governorship?
Well, I would say that the PDP and Adeleke are on ground in Osun, because the result is evident in the presidential elections, even the State Assembly elections. It was really evident, and Adeleke had taken the bull by the horn, and he has drawn tremendously well in 100 days. I saw the press release of his the activities of his achievements in 100 days, and he has done pretty well. A new university to come to Ilesha. He had touched all sectors of governance in just 100 days. I think the people of Osun really want Adeleke to be governor.
Okay, let me ask this question then. It's a tricky question, but should the will of the people, what you're saying now is that the people at this point in time of Osun are inherently PDP right now. The people of Osun are loving PDP, they're voting PDP, they're embracing PDP in Osun as we speak. Should that will of the people dictate the Supreme Court's decision? Or should it strictly be about the technicalities of, oh, there was overvoting from Beavers, there was a certificate forgery, there was this, there was that, there was what? So should the will of the people be respected, or should it be ignored in the adjudication by the Supreme Court?
Well, for me, I think the will of the people will be the icing on the cake for Adeleke, eventually, because the developments in Osun, even the Supreme Court is privy to it, and they are aware that over time this guy has been on ground. He had won an election that was up to 20 years. He was in the Senate, and he had been the people's man all along. So I think it will help. It will help add to his victory at the Supreme Court.
So what Leko is saying, and there's a smidgen of truth to it, is that the judges are human beings too. The judges are Nigerians, and they live among us, and they are affected by all the issues that are going on around us. Does that surreptitiously swing their thinking or their objectivity, the fact that they are influenced by some of the things going on around us? So if they already know that the people of Osun want PDP, will they intentionally, even based on a technicality, go against the will of the people and give it to APC? Well, who knows? We'll see. I think they have 180 days or so to give a judgment. So fingers crossed. What matters most is that the Osun people get the best representation and someone who will better the quality of their lives. From what Leko is saying, Adeleke is doing very well now. I don't know what the people had to say about Oyetola's 4-year term. So we wish Osun all the very best. Yetunde, carry on, last one.
General Abacha's second in command, Oladipo Dia, passes on. Buhari, Tinubu, Jonathan, Obasanjo, Kalu, governors, condole with the family. All yours, Dio.
Well, interesting. This Dia story is sad. His passing on is sad. But what people remember him for is that he was the man who escaped death. Apparently, he was a General Abacha who was one of the most hated leaders of this country. And that's what I admire Dia for, is that in spite of the fact that he was second in command to the most hated leader, he is universally loved. How was he able to escape that tar of hatred that enveloped Abacha? I still don't understand it. I mean, they ruled the country together. Does he get the sympathy from the fact that Abacha turned on him and accused him of masterminding a phantom coup, locked him up and was going to kill him? And the only thing that helped him escape execution was the fact that Abacha died. So how did Dia manage to maintain and be loved, maintain universal acceptance and be loved by the people, despite the fact that he was the second in command of what was considered to be the most repressive regime in the history of Nigeria?
Well, I think General Dia over the years had the support of the people, despite that he was the second in command to the tyrant, General Sani Abacha, so to speak. And more like he was not a party to the annulment of the 1993 presidential elections, which would have brought in the late MKO Abiola to power. And over time, everything coupled together, I think it had worked for him. And since he was discharged by General Abdulsalami Abubakar, he had just gone silent, and he never participated even in politics. He was not looking like a greedy dictator come politician like some others. And I think he had worked for him really. He just went back to his home in Ogun State to return being a family man.
Okay, may General Diaz's soul rest in perfect peace, an elder statesman to the very end, and we condole with his family and the country at large on his passing and pray for the repose of his soul. All right, well, that's it for another edition of What's Your Take, my good people. Thank you for being with us today. Once again, my name is Dayo Akintobi. It's been a great pleasure being with you today, and I look forward to you joining us again on our next edition. Have a wonderful day and a great week ahead.